So you were saying that life is hard to begin with, and it's even harder if you're dealt a bad hand. And I responded that I haven't been dealt a bad hand. I'm incredibly lucky by kind of like the normal metrics that people use. Like I have a trust fund. It's not like a fancy trust fund, but I'm I don't think about or worry about money like really ever. But I don't like spend a lot of money either. I mean, compared with probably most people spend money, but I try to be very responsible with money. That's kind of the point. Is like I don't I don't spend frivolously, and a lot of the rich people that I know spend frivolously. Um, and so what I have is a very very weird hand. I was dealt a weird hand within the game that I learned as a kid, which is a different social environment and game that everybody else learns. So I have a weird hand within a weird game. And so the problem that I've had is I've had to teach myself how to learn how to use what I've been dealt. And so I'm like 3 or 4 layers of weird in terms of where I started from and how I've been using what I've been given. And so, like, everything that I think has uniqueness to it. And then I decided to double down on that. And one of the things that I've said to you before, it's probably been recorded and people probably heard it, is that I would rather, if we assume that everybody in the world is 90% right about what reality is like and 10% wrong about what reality is like, I would rather be 80% right about what reality is like. If 10% of my 80% covers the place where everybody else is 10% wrong. So I'll take being wrong about 20% of stuff that everybody else is right about in exchange for being right about the 10% that everybody is wrong about. That seems to me to be a good trade off. Because if you have a bunch of people who are right about the 20% that you're wrong about, they can correct for you. Whereas if you have the 10% that everybody is wrong and you're right about it, you have the power to change the world because everybody else is blind and can see. Whereas everybody else can see where you are blind. So you don't have to worry about your blind spot nearly as much as everybody else doesn't even know that their blind spot is there, and gives you leverage.
It's a really interesting way to frame it.
And that, in my opinion, is the fundamental trade-off of being a genius. If you look at, like, I'm not talking like a mad genius might be the way that some people would phrase it, but if you look at like the most brilliant minds of history, a lot of them said some weird stuff. Like Nikola Tesla is probably the individual best example of kind of what a edge case genius looks like in terms of like psychologically, and then in terms of like belief structure. Like he did not understand electrodynamics the way that we understand electrodynamics, but somehow his way of understanding electrodynamics really worked. Like he was right in terms of physical reality in ways that we sometimes struggle to like implement in the modern age. And that's a kind of deep genius. And that kind of deep genius where he's also like, I'm in contact with like aliens and they're telling me how to change the world kind of stuff that he went off and forayed into, is that's a bit of the cost. You have to be so at the edge in terms of what might be true in order to really have the creative power to discover something truly importantly new, that you're going to pick up some weird stuff. This is a side effect. And that's not actually really a problem if you have people around you who can sort a little bit for, you know, what fits into your 20% versus what fits into the 10% of the rest of the world. And so if you have people who can sort a bit for you, then you don't have to have all the blinders up that does the sorting that everybody else is engaged in. to get that last 10%. It's sort of an 80-20 like Pareto distribution problem, and so that's been kind of my approach. Like I've tried to stay sane, right? But I would rather be at the edge and pick up errors that are interesting errors, like errors that are unique to me, in exchange for finding the things that everybody else is wrong about. And that's kind of how I think that more people should approach the world intellectually, is take a big risk on some beliefs and see where they take you for a decade or two. Go all in on believing them. You know, if you structure your mind in a way where you can get underneath like your fundamental beliefs, if you need to discard something, to have a pathway to discard something that is broken and stuck in your head, like that is very, very important. That's a sort of finding ways, like teaching yourself how to be unbiased, not so that you remain unbiased the rest of your life, but so that you can become biased again, but then fix it if it gets broken. Because a lot of bias is shortcuts.
Yeah.
A lot of bias is a quick way to solve really difficult problems. A lot of bias makes you smarter. But if you get stuck in biases, that's very dysfunctional. And so the idea is become unbiased so that you can become biased again, but so that you aren't stuck in bias. So you're not trapped by your bias. You can step out of your bias.
One thing stood out of a lot of things you mentioned just now, which is what Daniel Schmachtenberger calls how reality is autopoietic. It's writing itself. So how do you create your structure for reality? How do you engineer it? How do you find ways of tweaking it? How do you find ways of articulating your beliefs in a manner that they are editable, Lego blocks? Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, I love Daniel. He says a lot of great stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm in touch with him now, so hopefully I can get him on.
Yeah. We should do it. We should totally get him on. I think we should get him to speak about a few things. Perhaps in a week or two when we have clarity on what we might even get him to speak on.
That's the next couple of weeks we should have some really interesting guests. I'm very, very excited. I've got Brett kind of lined up, Daniel kind of lined up. We'll see about getting Yanir on, and then possibly Nassim, and then possibly Eric Weinstein, and then who knows after that. Like, this is what I've been working on.
Sounds great, man. I look forward to it.